So we are delighted and honored to have our federal contingency here from EPA. We have Mr. David Cash, who is the Region 1 Administrator. He will be saying a few words in just a moment, but I wanted to just start out by thanking all of you for being here. Welcome to Waterbury. For those who haven't been here before, obviously our legacy here is we were the brass capital of the world in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And as you can see from this site, which was a brass site as well, our legacy is, we have a significant number of brownfields in our city, somewhere around 100. But at the end of the day, through the amazing support of EPA Region 1 particularly over the last 20 years. Of course, Connecticut Deep, Commissioner Dykes is here with us, very familiar with Waterbury, a frequent visitor to Waterbury. Of course, our governor has led the march on brownfield remediation here in the state. And right here is, this site is known as Waterbury Button. It's located the address here is 835 South Main Street. There are 9 buildings on this site. Almost all of them, or maybe all of them, probably unworthy to be salvaged. But at the end of the day, as you can see around us, are many residents of our great city live within walking distance here. And we are just delighted and honored to continue our brownfield march to clean up these sites and get them back. And without the help and support of EPA, we just wouldn't be able to do it. Our federal delegation and, of course, our state delegation, our governor. So without further ado, please warm welcome to Mr. David Cash, Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. Okay.
Come on.
Good afternoon. Excellent. It is a good afternoon. It's always a good afternoon when EPA is in a community working with our congressional delegation to allocate funding to do such wonderful work as has already been done in this city and will be done in this city. I want to start really quickly with some thank yous. Of course, all the folks behind me to be thanked. Rick Dunn, the Executive Director of the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, thanks for being here. Katie Dykes, Deep Commissioner, Congresswoman DeLauro, our Senators Murphy and Blumenthal, wonderful to have you here today, and of course, Mayor and Janet McCabe, Deputy Administrator from EPA. I also want to thank, because of course, work on the ground is so important. The politics on the ground is so important. Decision-making on the ground is so important. I want to thank, there's some state folks from the state legislature here, Senator Joan Hartley, Representative Bill Pizzuto, Representative Geraldo Reyes, and Representative Ron Napoli. Thanks so much for being here today. Yeah. There's Alderman Salvio and Lopez are here as well from Waterbury. Thank you for being here today. And Police Chief Fernando Spagnoli and Fire Chief Terrence Ballou are here. I saw folks standing. Thank you so much. So as the mayor noted, I'm the regional administrator in EPA Region 1. That's all 6 of the New England states and the 10 native tribes that call New England their home. And I'd also like to just take a moment to remember and ask you to remember that no matter where we are standing in New England, we're on ancestral lands of indigenous peoples who have inhabited this area for generation upon generation and who have been steward of these lands and waters. In fact, we're on the banks of the Naugatuck River, which is an Algonquian word. And of course, for generations and generations, the fish that would swim up from Long Island Sound, the salmon, the herring, sustained the people that lived here nutritionally and spiritually. And that's actually something that I know DEEP and EPA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the state are working on trying to restore these runs of fish here. So that's something that's actively happening 100 yards from here. So it's fantastic to be here. As I noted and as the mayor noted, there's just huge opportunity in investments in brownfields. And in fact, I think about it as win, 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 win situations. We're cleaning up, and by the way, that's to go counter to the mistaken notion that environmental protection is counter to economic development. In fact, it's the opposite. Those two things go hand in hand, and all you need to do is look at any successful brownfield remediation and redevelopment to see that, and come back in 5 or 10 years from here, and you'll see the same thing here. You'll see pollution cleaned up. You'll see active new development happening. You'll see jobs in the construction, retail jobs, if this becomes a retail place. We'll see an engine for community engagement and development. I love the story. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to come by and look at the food security development that's happened here, where instead of listening and seeing this behind us, you see kids and family members who are growing food for their own food security. And this is a place, these are investments where we get to right environmental injustices. We get to look at those communities that have been the most vulnerable, the most overburdened, and invest in those communities so that we can correct the wrongs and we can provide the opportunities for job growth and community development in a very powerful way. And another win that I learned of at we had an event in Woonsocket, Rhode Island a couple of days ago. And one of the reasons why I'm particularly excited to notice the police chief and fire chief is I hadn't quite thought about or put together what a public safety problem these things are. And by addressing those, we address those issues. So thank you very much for your work in the public safety realm, and we're going to try to make your job easier here. So thank you very much. What I'd love to do now is bring up Deputy Administrator Janet McCabe. She's been a long-time advocate for the connection of environmental protection and economic development. She worked in the Obama administration on the air side, looking at the same kinds of victories, same kinds of win-win-wins where we clean up the air and we can get economic development. Deputy Administrator McCabe.
Well, hey, everybody, and it is so nice to be here. What a beautiful, lovely day. I won't repeat all the thanks and introductions, but I'm just really grateful to be here with our congressional, state, local, regional partners, community partners. You can't do any of this stuff without partnership from the ground up. I mean, these are your communities, and you guys care about what happens to them, and we're here to help you, not the other way around. So this is a second event in Connecticut, and I've been, it seems like I might as well move to New England because of all the great stuff that's happening in communities far and wide in New England. In fact, local celebrity here, Mayor O'Leary. 2 weeks ago, our office hosted a regional Brownfields conference that brought hundreds of people from across New England, and Mayor O'Leary was there to tell the story of Waterbury. And I think you can all just about imagine in your own mind the things that he was able to talk about. What a hero and a leader he is to have the vision to see what can be done in a community like this, and then to work with the people that he knows he needs to work with to get the resources to do it. And look here, he's done it again. So this is just a super exciting day. Because of the partnership between the U.S. Congress and President Biden coming together to enact and sign the bipartisan infrastructure law, David Cash and I and others from EPA get to go all around the country making announcements like this. And I won't ask you to raise your hands, but if anybody here was born during the Eisenhower administration, that's about how long ago it was that this country made this kind of investment in our infrastructure. That's a long time ago. And there's a lot of money coming to communities across the country to fix roads and bridges and clean up pollution and deal with water pollution, get lead service lines out of our water system so people aren't drinking water contaminated with lead, to deal with sites like this. And so it gives me great pleasure to be able to be in Rhode Island and hand over a big fake check, and to be here and hand over a big fake check. A couple weeks ago, I was in my home state of Indiana, and I handed a big fake check to the mayor of Lebanon, Indiana. So this is good news all across the country. EPA's Brownfields program has got to be one of the best things around. It brings hope to communities like this, to underserved communities across the country, places that are urban like this, places that are rural, places that are just nowhere, and are not contributing in a positive way to those communities. And these are places where cleanup and where jobs, local jobs, are needed the most. So the Brownfields program provides funding to figure out where those sites are and what the problems are, and then to go ahead and clean them up. But even more importantly, they empower local communities to take charge and address economic, environmental, public health, and societal issues that are associated with these kinds of sites. And the immense improvement that can be made in the quality of life for a neighborhood like this cannot be overestimated. These investments are central to the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to build back American communities and our economy, and to address environmental justice issues in underserved communities every single day of this administration. So just 3 weeks ago, we as an agency were able to announce a total of $254 million for 265 communities across the country through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to assess and clean up contaminated sites across the country like this one. More than 51 million of those dollars came to 42 communities in New England. And communities across the state of Connecticut were awarded nearly 7 million of those dollars. And today we're in Waterbury specifically to recognize the City of Waterbury and the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments with grants, and we'll hand over those big checks at the end of the event. City of Waterbury is receiving an assessment grant of $150,000 to assess the site where we're standing right now, the former Button Factory. The City of Waterbury has received over $6 million to date and has used that funding to address 33 different sites throughout the city under various assessment, cleanup, and revolving loan fund grants and technical assistance through our targeted Brownfields assessment program. The city, so smart, has worked in coordination with a bunch of different organizations: the Waterbury Development Corporation, the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, the Police Activity League of Waterbury, I was hearing about that a little bit ago, and New Opportunities Economic Development Corporation. All of those organizations working hard to revitalize sites in Waterbury, and we're so proud continue the partnership with the city. And I also just need to give a shout out to your mayor. He's a member of EPA's Local Government Advisory Committee. This is a group of mayors from cities and towns, big and small and everything in between across the country, who give the agency advice about how to put out grants, how to run programs like this to make them as easy as possible for cities to make as much of an impact as they can with the federal resources that we have the responsibility and the privilege to help get into communities. The Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments is going to be receiving an additional $3.9 million to supplement their successful revolving loan fund program serving the Naugatuck Valley area. And the council has received over $7 million to date for sites throughout the Naugatuck Valley region. So you guys totally rock when it comes to getting federal money to fix your community. The sites that you guys are focusing on have a history of industrial operations which leave behind contamination that needs to be assessed and remediated. People had no idea the mess they were making. And it's been building up for decades, and it's taking decades to fix. But we get it now, and we're focused on it. The council currently has an assessment and revolving loan fund program grant in progress and continues to work with EPA to repurpose sites for redevelopment. So this year, because of the infrastructure bill, we have significantly more funding for the Brownfields program. We have, it is going to allow us to advance. There's thousands of these sites across the country, you guys, and many of them are ready to go, just they don't have the money. And that's what Congress and the President have allowed us to do, is to start moving those sites forward. Like I said, not since Eisenhower have we had this kind of opportunity $1.5 billion over 5 years for the Brownfields program, $300 million a year. And that's on top of the Brownfields funds that Congress already appropriates this year. The other thing about the Brownfields program is that you really can't help but focus on the areas that need it the most when you focused on brownfields. Underserved communities, communities that have been left out, that have not had the opportunities for job development, for green space, for local food growing, for amenities for kids and families to thrive and enjoy their communities. Can I just give you a couple of statistics about the Brownfields program? Over the period of the time of this program, since the 1990s, $89 million into communities in Connecticut, 575 sites assessed, 50 sites cleaned up, more than 6,000 jobs created. More than 6,000 jobs created. And I love this one, $1.18 billion in leveraged funds. So that is some good math. That is some good math. The Brownfields program is helping President Biden deliver on his Justice 40 initiative, where he committed that at least 40% of these kinds of government programs, the benefits of those programs will flow to disadvantaged communities. The Brownfields program, of the total amount of the Brownfields program, more than 80% goes to disadvantaged communities. And we're so proud to have a leading role in doing that. Many of the sites within the city of Waterbury and the Naugatuck Valley are located in communities that have environmental justice concerns, are just the kinds of communities that President Biden is thinking about when he thinks Justice 40, and that we're thinking about when we think environmental justice. So I am so excited about this. I'm looking forward to coming back in a couple of years to Waterbury and seeing what this site looks like. And very pleased now to turn the program back over to David Cash so that you can hear from these other speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Administrator. While we're still on EPA, I wanted to give a quick shout out to staff who are here who have made this event possible. So on the communications and public affairs side, we have Doug Gutrow and Michaela Rumpf and Charlotte Gray. Thank you so much for your work. And of course, on the Brownfield side, he couldn't be here, but our section chief, Frank Gardner, and Brownfields coordinator, Jim Byrne, is here. And a special shout out to Katie Deng. Katie has worked with the city and the Council of Governments to put the grants together. Katie, thank you so much. Your work is incredible. I'd like to ask to come up Senator Blumenthal, who has been such a champion of environmental protection, whether it's in urban settings like this, with his support of the Brownfields programs, in major toxic areas that are covered under the Superfund program, or with protection of the Long Island Sound. He's been a huge supporter of other infrastructure funding that's coming to protection of the Long Island Sound, working in partnership with our region, EPA region across the border, which includes New York. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks to EPA and all the staff of EPA and to President Biden for his commitment. And I want to give a special thanks to my colleagues who are here today, Senator Murphy, my partner in the Senate, and of course to the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, probably the most powerful person on this site, certainly, Rosa DeLauro. Thank you. You know, going back to the historic commitment to infrastructure under the Eisenhower administration, it was the greatest generation that made that commitment. They came back from winning the war, and they rebuilt America, literally, in a very bipartisan, non-political way. They were the greatest generation, not only because of what they did at war, but what they did at peace. And we have the historic opportunity now to help rebuild America in exactly the way that you are going to see at this site. The old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Men and women came to work every day at this site without knowing that there were contaminants and toxins seeping into the ground. they no longer work here, but the contaminants are still here, preventing other jobs from being created. This site will be an enormous source of jobs, jump-starting economic growth, turning blight into might. Literally, blight into might and into light, instead of what it is now, a source of real darkness. And thanks to the police and fire service who are here today, I've been at Brownfield where our fire service was actually trying to put out huge conflagrations, started because of the wastelands vulnerable to fire that these sites have become. So these millions of dollars are going to provide jobs here in the reconstruction, jobs in the economic development they'll afford, and leverage state and local dollars. As you've just heard, that's what happens when EPA invests. Others invest too. When I was Attorney General of the state, I spent a lot of time suing people, try to get the resources that now, fortunately, EPA is providing. Much better way to do it. It's faster and more reliable. And I will just say, I look forward to coming back here too, not in years, but in months, when we begin to see real differences made and real change happening here. We need to recover, literally recover these brownfield sites, not only for our sake, but for future generations. You know, every generation of Americans makes a compact with the next. We're going to leave America a little bit better than we found it. So future leaders like Maggie O'Leary, who's here today, will come back to Waterbury, a bigger, greater city than even Mayor O'Leary could leave it. And he has been, let me just conclude on this note, Mayor O'Leary has been a great mayor and a wonderful leader, and nobody cares more. Nobody cares more about Waterbury, about making brownfields constructive sources of employment and economic activity and development than Mayor O'Leary. My thanks to him and all of his team who are here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Now I have the honor and pleasure to introduce the second senator from Connecticut. And of course, Connecticut is blessed to have two senators who are so forward-looking on environment, so forward-looking on the link between environment and economic development. And I also want to just give, I know it's not on point, but just a shout out, Senator Murphy, for the work that you do on gun safety. We all know we're in trying times, and your leadership is so appreciated, so thank you. I know that events like this are things that he loves to come to because they are the embodiment of the work that a policymaker does that makes concrete, literally and figuratively, changes on the ground to improve communities. Senator Murphy?
Thanks. Thank you very much, David. Janet, thank you for being here. Thanks to your entire team. I go through a ritual when I first call new regional administrators to congratulate them on their job. And this ritual was part of my conversation with David back in the fall. I tell them that they've got a great job, they've got a great portfolio, and then I invite them to Waterbury. Because if you want to see what EPA can do, if you want to see the success of EPA programs, then come to Waterbury. Because, well, we have a lot of brownfields. We have even more companies that want to locate in this city. And the primary obstacle to companies who want to be here in Waterbury, right, with access to sort of every transit highway that you can imagine, with access to the greatest workforce in the Northeast, the only thing they can't find is the space, And as we clean up these brownfields and get them ready for redevelopment, We are opening up the pathways to literally hundreds of companies that want to be here in Waterbury. And so it is wonderful to see yet again this big investment being made in this city and in the region. Because, a lot of people think that manufacturing is Connecticut's past, right? My great-grandfather, my grandfather worked in the ball bearing factories of New Britain. I mean, this building is iconic, right? The buttons that were made here in Waterbury, they were on the soldiers that signed the treaty that ended the Civil War. They're at the bottom of the ocean on the Titanic. But manufacturing is our future in this state. Companies are coming to Waterbury, but they're flooding into the state throughout. Connecticut has always had a greater percentage of our workforce in manufacturing than the national average. And so cleaning up these factories is about getting ready for the next wave of companies that are coming to this country. And lastly, let me just tell you that the bipartisan infrastructure bill, really an incredible achievement of the Biden administration. We've been talking about infrastructure forever. And we were able to pass a bill, Republicans and Democrats coming together and make this historic investment. That's why we are announcing the money today. This money is from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But the other investments in infrastructure that are going to happen in Connecticut because of that bill are going to make the impact of this investment even more significant. So we're going to spend $30 billion speeding up the Northeast Rail Corridor. That means we're going to make improvements on the rail line from Waterbury to Bridgeport down to New York, which means even more companies are going to have access to Connecticut markets, which means even more companies are going to want to come here, which means there's going to be even more demand for clean sites like this one when we do the assessment and the cleanup. So the opportunities for economic development in this region, just are, so multiple as it's hard to really accurately describe because of this massive investment that both Republicans and Democrats have gotten behind. And so I'm so grateful to Governor Lamont for putting us in a position to win these funds. I'm grateful to the Biden administration for their leadership. And of course, as a delegation, we've been very lucky to have the chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee from Connecticut, but we work together as a team. And I think you will be seeing many, many more of these happy days, investments from the federal government in Waterbury and in the state of Connecticut to come. So again, to the EPA team for being here today, we really appreciate your focus on Waterbury and your focus on Connecticut.
Thank you so much, Senator, and I accept your invitation to come here. Speaking of the chair of the Appropriations Committee, it's my pleasure for the second time today to introduce Congresswoman DeLauro, also a champion of protecting the environment, also a champion of economic development, also a champion of economic development that'll make the biggest difference in the communities that have been overburdened and are most vulnerable. It's a pleasure to have you here, second time today. Congresswoman?
Thank you very, very much. And I noted that the deputy administrator talked about fake checks, but the money is real. The money is real, guys. The money is real. So thank you very, very much. And David, thank you for your introduction and for the work that you do. It is the second time today, and with the commissioner and with David and Janet. And when we were, and I just will mention this, that we were in Stratford earlier today, and that is because we're looking at $23 million that is going to the city of Stratford in order to deal with the cleanup of the Raymark site, which we have been working on for 3 decades. And so you want to talk about an EPA that is forward-looking, on their feet, making sure that their dollars are going to the communities that need the help today. And we have Katie, the commissioner, is here today. She was at we did a teletown hall last night on energy and climate. It was 4,000 people. I double-checked the number, Commissioner. But it's wonderful to be with you for the second time today. And Mayor, you know, what happens in our cities and towns and their accomplishments come from leadership, yes, but come from vision. And what you believe that the city of Waterbury can be all about. And you have a great vision and turning the tables on making sure that economic development is at the center of the lifeblood of the city of Waterbury, for what that means in terms of the economic security of the people of Waterbury and this region. So thank you so very, very much. And to you, Rick Dunn, for the work that you do. We've known each other many, 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 many years. Yeah, so the Naugatuck Valley Council of Government, the Executive Director, Rick, thank you. Thank you for your cooperative spirit and working with all of the partners here to make sure that we are doing the right thing in economic development. The chiefs who are here, the aldermen and the state officials, as so many have mentioned, this is a partnership. It's state, city, federal government coming together with the associations that work in partnership with the governmental bodies that make things happen. And I acknowledge my colleagues in the Senate, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy. We always say we're a small delegation, but we are a mighty delegation. And it's great, wonderful to serve with both of you. And thank you not only for today, but for the great work that you do, both Chris and Richard, on the issue of gun safety and making sure that not only for our community, but for this nation as well. We're so grateful for your work. It's been said here that, look, what is this about? It is about taking contaminated land. It's about revitalizing communities, cleaning up contaminated and blighted sites, developing them for productive use. It is about jobs. It is about commercial development. And yes, it is about increasing the tax revenues to our local government. All important to you, Mayor, and to the alders and et cetera here in this town. It's about those tax revenues. And this investment on the Brownfields program transforms lives. It spurs life-changing revitalization in communities that are large and small, urban and rural. And it really desire to keep our neighborhoods healthy, sustainable, and it is reflective of the place that people call home. They want to live in communities that have a future and where that they can raise their families. I want to, again, to Connecticut, it's about $7 million. It's about 6 grants, one of them going to Waterbury, one to West Haven, 2 to New Haven, 1 to Vernon, et cetera. But there's also the $3.9 million that's going to the COG for what you can do in leveraging those dollars. So this is a real, and all under the aegis of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We need to plumb the depths of that infrastructure bill because it is so critically important. It's roads, it's bridges, it's dams, it's marinas, it's ports. It is cleaning up polluted areas. There's so many advantages to this infrastructure bill, and we need to be shouting it from the rooftops. And let me just, and what we're trying to do, and the Button Factory is a testament to it, and Chris is right when he talks about manufacturing is the future for Connecticut. It is not the past, it is the future. And we need to bring the old industrial and manufacturing sites back. I just will make a final comment. A final comment as I see Congresswoman Johanna Hayes slip into the meeting. Come sit down, Johanna. Congresswoman Hayes. She has most of Waterbury. I have a part of Waterbury, but we both represent the city of Waterbury in the House. My last comment to you. when I look at what we did with the American Rescue Plan, what we've done with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, there'll be some remnants of the Build Back Better at some point. There will be something there. And I think about the appropriations process as well, and where the focus has been. The focus in years past, in decades past, has been providing tax breaks to the richest people, the 1/10 of 1% of people in this country, and to work with the biggest corporations in this country. Where we're now seeing is a fundamental shift in where federal resources are going, starting last January. And we're looking at the focus on children, on families, on women, on small businesses, on state and local government, on doing something about helping our communities climb out of pollution and contaminated efforts, and focusing where the federal resources ought to be going, and that is to our communities, and changing that. And we don't speak about that enough, about where federal resources are now going. So, and I'm so honored to join you today and to be with all of you as we make our way, and we're going to turn our communities, our cities, and our towns around through this legislation, and with a vision that the president has, which the mayor has, which our governor has, is to let us make Connecticut a place where people can, one, feel safe, two, raise their children, have economic security and future for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. It is a total pleasure that Congresswoman Hayes has joined us today as well. With all of the investment that we're making in this region, it's fantastic to have you here, and it's fantastic to have your support for the bipartisan infrastructure law and all that you've done to support environmental protection, EPA, and economic development. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry I'm late, but this is a really big district, and I've been all over this morning. I'm sure that my colleagues at the federal level have already shared how hard we fought and why this is so important. But for me, this is home. I love Waterbury. This is my city. I have a different level of investment here. And to see this city come back to life, to see us be able to clean up some of these, blighted spaces, these industrial hazardous spaces, and revitalize them in a forward-thinking way is something that literally I've prayed for, I've hoped for, I wished for long before I got to Congress. I voted for leaders who also believed in that. It is an honor to be a partner with Mayor O'Leary, who I trusted many, many years ago to do what he said he was going to do, and it was bring this city back to life. And just to be able to do that, to be able to look at our community and imagine the investments that we can make and how people can thrive here is what I would want any elected official to do. So again, I just thank you for your shared values, for your shared vision, for believing in the city the same way that I do. I am lucky to come from a state and a community where our elected officials, our state legislator, believe the same thing and want it so badly for the city and are willing to work for it and to speak up and to make sure that there's a direct impact for the people who live here, for the people who remember, who have had to sacrifice over the years when nothing was being done, to be able to say, we have a plan and we have a vision and we are taking action. So again, thank you for being here, for joining us, to my federal partners in both the Senate and the House, who are we're all aligned and joined in making sure that Connecticut gets our fair share, or a little more if we can, of all federal resources, and that our communities have the same level of value and investments as other communities around the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Now, I've lost count how many times speakers have talked about partnership And our next partner is at the state level. EPA works really closely with all of our states, and I've had the pleasure to work with Katie Dykes, Commissioner Katie Dykes from DEEP, for many, many years. When I was in Massachusetts State Governor, we partnered on a number of different projects, and it's been a total delight to work with you and your staff now on all of these issues. I'm very lucky because this is the second time I'm introducing her today. Commissioner Dykes.
Thank you so much, David. It's so great to be here. And I want to tell you a little secret about Brownfield's events. Obviously, as the Commissioner of DEEP, I get to do a lot of events all around the state with federal and local partners, everything from, talking about parks and recreation and bears and offshore wind and all kinds of things. There's something unique about events about Brownfields because when we're cutting a ribbon or talking about investments that are going into a brownfield, we're always standing in a community that has leaders that have a certain extra quality of vision and tenacity and commitment. It's really easy to drive by sites like this and see, empty factories and abandoned mills and think about the jobs that used to be here and the engines of the economy that have moved on to other communities somewhere else. It's a whole other thing to spend time with leaders like many of you've heard from today who see these kinds of sites and are thinking about and working towards and just absolutely relentless about ensuring that these are sites where jobs are coming back. And so I think we should really rename our Brownfields program to the Bring Jobs Back program. Because that's what we're doing here today. I'm so thrilled that we have leaders at EPA, obviously with the enormous support from our federal delegation, to bring these dollars to our communities, especially here in Waterbury. The EPA funds that are going into this site actually then become the seed money and unlock more state-level funding that we're able to put to work in our communities. I see Senator Hartley here from the Commerce Committee. I see Representative Reyes here from the Environment Committee. We have incredible legislators who've been supportive of the governor's budget that has invested $33 million in brownfields all across our state to date since the governor took office, and $50 million additional dollars authorized for bonding in this year's budget alone. So we're super excited about the opportunity of the bipartisan infrastructure law is presenting for investing and bringing jobs back. And I'm excited that with Governor Lamont's support, we're ready at the state level to get our dollars working to bring jobs back to communities like Waterbury. Thank you so much for letting us be part of this today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I introduce the next speaker, can we all give it up for municipal public servants? Having been at the state level and now at the federal level, I have no illusions about where all the action actually happens. It's at the city and town, at the municipal level. And it's such a pleasure to introduce the mayor here. Mayor O'Leary has been a visionary. He's been tenacious, as we've heard. Don't tell Senator Murphy, but in my first weeks, he also invited me to come here. Something special about Waterbury. So one of the things with all the descriptions of the mayor, here's another one that I'm sure you've all noticed. Joy. He takes an incredible amount of joy in doing what he's doing, in transforming the city, in transforming these buildings, in transforming neighborhoods. You could tell his passion and dedication by the smile on his face when he talks about these kinds of projects. Mayor?
Well, thank you. Thank you all. Particular thanks to David and Janet from EPA. And there's a few other friends at EPA I need to acknowledge. As mentioned, Frank Gardner is not here, but we've been working with Frank for the last 20 plus years on these projects. And Jim Burns is here. We're very grateful for. My lifeline, honestly, the EPA has been Doug Guttrow. I'm so grateful to see him here today and answer all my calls and texts and all the things that matter. As mentioned here before, it is a collaboration, and you quickly learn, as our Mr. Cash had said, you quickly learn, you find out quickly who the commissioners are and the deputy commissioners, and then you find out that next level of folks that you can go to and get them to answer the phone on the first ring and guide you in a direction that's meaningful. And so those are the unsung heroes, right? But particularly, I see Graham Stevens is here from Deep, and he's been an amazing supporter of ours for so many years, as well, of course, Commissioner Dykes, who we've heard from. But I look out and I see Gary O'Connor here. You know, 2004, the very first Brownfield project that I got involved with, Attorney Gary O'Connor, I called him and I said, Gary, how do we buy this Brownfield across the street from Pal? And how do we remediate it, and what do we need to do? And oh my God, it was the beginning of a long relationship. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my daughter Maggie, only because in 2004 she was 3 years old, and starting then we used to go for our Sunday rides through the neighborhoods of Waterbury and look at all of these brownfields. And I remember, even at the really tender age of 3 and 4 and 5, of course I had to bribe her once in a while with Carvel ice cream, but she'd look with this, right, when a child that age has this most sincere and innocent look on their face as you're driving around a brownfield and maybe getting access inside and looking around, and she'd say, Daddy, how could anyone have ever left this like this? And those are very impactful impressions left on me, and it's just ironic that she's here today. She's a senior now at the College of Holy Cross, and she's majoring in environmental sciences. So I'm really proud of her, and I really am, because she has made this her mission. Her high school capstone project was Brownfield. So, I mean, it's really, it's been something that's been going on forever. So it's all good. Listen, I am delighted with our federal delegation's presence, our state delegation's presence, and of course our EPA administrator's presence. But I'm delighted with our department heads as well. These are the folks that get it done for us here on a local level, and I can't tell you how proud I am. And lastly, our state delegation, led by, of course, our senior senator, State Senator Joan Hartley. Jerry Reyes is here. Bill Pizzuto, our newcomer, is here. Ron Napoli is here. DG was in and out quick. At the end of the day, it really is a family affair. And when the family starts to fight, we have to figure out ways to fix it and get back on track. Because the bigger the family, the more interesting situations we come across. But at the end of the day, we all love each other here, we work hard, and we remember the one thing that's most important, and it's the city of Waterbury. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. And Maggie, applying to a job at EPA is as easy as going to usajobs.gov. So one of the interesting things that you all have here that's not the case in all of New England is a council of governments, where you've realized that solving some of these kinds of challenges and grabbing opportunities is best done at a regional level, to take advantage of the particular expertises or values of different municipalities. And I want to invite Rick Dunn up here, the Executive Director of the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, to speak.
Thank you. I guess it's pretty intimidating for someone like me, a kid from Naugatuck Valley, to have to follow this group. I got to tell you, it's not easy. It's a friendly group. Okay. But so I've been trying to think about what I could add here, and really I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of the revolving loan fund and what we do. We've received, as Deputy Administrator said before, $5.2 million previously, which we've leveraged into non-federal and private investments of $85 million. It's an incredible amount of money. And the credit belongs to the municipalities. I work for 19 mayors and first select persons around the region. They really call the shots, they put the deals together, and they make this all happen. But this money is what I call magic money, because what we're able to do is we're able to get deals going that otherwise wouldn't make it past a bank. They wouldn't make it past financing. We come in with a big chunk of federal money, we loan it to a private developer who's working with a municipality, and that private developer is able to gain the information that allows private lenders to put the money in place for the vertical development, to turn this into something other than what it is today. That's what's most important about this money. That's what I think we really do better than almost anyone. Call me biased. Connecticut has a really, really good LEP verification program. It's that predictability with the money, with the information we develop under the RLF, and that predictability of that sign-off. That's what allows banks and investors to invest in these communities. We've probably gotten more equity benefit and more equity return over the years through these deals, because deals get done in neighborhoods that are under-resourced, that don't have the natural attraction of developers to invest their money in it. So I think that's what's most important. A lot's been said about partnerships today. This is a partnership that's been going on for almost 20 years now, really solid 15 years of federal, state, and local. I have to say, our delegation, they are our friends. They're not just the members of Congress. They really care about us. And I can say that from the heart. They've really been there for us all along. And I have to say, I appreciate it. With that, I have a bunch of those big fake checks, and I'm happy to take another one today. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Before I wrap up, I just want to stop at one of the things you said, Rick. So Rick said 5 million turned into 85 million of investment. That's 16 to 1. So Senator, Congresswoman, that $4 million in checks, that's going to be like $64 million of economic development, of jobs. I mean, that is an incredible return on investment. Let's hear it for a return on investment. So, before we actually hand over the real checks, I just wanted to, I've had obviously lots of thoughts, as many of you have had, as we've sat here and listened to all the speakers. And I've heard a lot of wins, as I started with, and even a couple of more. When the mayor and I were at the Brownfields conference a couple of weeks ago that Janet mentioned, I did my win spiel, and it was followed by another Mayor Dan Rivera, former mayor of Lawrence. And very respectfully, he said, yeah, those are good, all those wins, but there's one win that we're looking for. And as I sat here, I thought about it a lot, because I can see that house over there. I saw a family of children walking by here. There was a school bus that went by, kids looking and wondering what's going on. Here's that one win that I think we're all collectively working for. It's that kid who now is walking by an 8-foot-tall fence, wondering, why has the community, just like Maggie said to you, why has this community left this for me? And Mayor Rivera said, the kids are wondering about their own self-worth. I live in a city in which they allow this to happen? How can that possibly be? So let's imagine in a number of years when that 4 million that's turned into 64 million is spent and redeveloped, and we don't know what's here. There's going to be amazing something here. New redevelopment, retail, residents, new manufacturing, I don't know. But then imagine that kid coming out of that house there, looking with pride at the buildings across the street, looking at pride, and maybe there'll be a for hire sign there where that kid can get a job in 18 years and 20 years. That's the win that we're looking for. We're looking for those kids who walk by and look at these properties and say, this is the city I'm in, this is the city that I want to be in, and I feel great about living here. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been wonderful to be here today.